Poštovani gledatelji, drugu emisiju iz našeg serijala WhatS Sjever Jug počinjemo u Oslu, u parku Vigeland, jednom od onih must-see mjesta u glavnom gradu Norveške. Tu su kipovi, mahom ljudske figure, koje simboliziraju norveški liberalizam, bijeg od ustaljenih društvenih normi, a najpoznatija skulptura ispred koje se svi slikaju i po kiši i po mrazu, Sina Tagen, što bi se prevelo kao mala vruća glava, ovaj dječak je najpopularniji lik u gradu. A posvuda okolo, ona je norveški specijalitet, ljudi svih uzrasta trče. Na broj stanovnika od 5 milijuna nigdje ih nije toliko. I eto, u Vigelandu doznajemo o norveškom mentalitetu. Od zanimljivog pisca Larsa Svendsena, autora knjige Filozofija, dosade, prevođenog i na hrvatski jezik.
Is Norway a boring country?
Yeah, I guess you could say that because I've always thought of heaven as a pretty boring place. And as Talking Heads, the American band, puts it in one song, heaven is a place where nothing ever happens. And Norway is a place where nothing ever happens. And of course, when nothing happens, it's usually a bit boring.
But it's heaven?
Well, if you look at the standard of living in Norway, if you look at crime rates, if you look at the economy and so on, it's definitely one of the most comfortable places on Earth to live, except for the weather, of course. Yeah, the weather is far from heavenly.
And then you wrote a book on loneliness.
Yeah.
Now, loneliness and escaping in nature, how that combines together?
Well, I mean, in English we have two terms, loneliness and solitude, where you can say that loneliness is the bad, painful variety, whereas solitude is the positive experience. And when we Norwegians...
Kind of noblesse.
Yeah, and when we Norwegians walk out all by ourselves in nature, that's solitude. We like it. It's a sort of a space in which you can relate to yourself, think about things and so on. We enjoy that. But of course there's also the bad variety, which we usually refer to as loneliness. And I think it's quite interesting that Norway, which is an extremely individualized country, we have the second highest number of single dwelling households on Earth. I mean, households with only one person in them, second highest on Earth. And you would perhaps think that there must be a lot of loneliness in such a society.
You wrote several books. Yeah. 27 countries translated these books from this small language Norwegian.
Yeah.
In 27 countries, all right. Are you a wealthy man after all these books?
Nah, but I mean, there's no money in books, but they're fun to write. So, I mean, I primarily make my living as a philosophy professor, and then the books provide a little bit additional income. But I mean, I do well. I'm perfectly happy. I think this is fascinating because it's related to another thing that's big in Norway, namely trust. Norwegians are the most trusting population on Earth.
And the name in Norwegian is?
Tillit.
Tillit.
Tillit. And actually close where I live, there's this old, emptied out, huge building.
Skyscraper, 15 floors, something like that?
Yeah, with the word Tillit,
right,
written across it.
Zgradu na kojoj piše riječ povjerenje, tillit, grad je dao svojedobno na korištenje civilnom društvu. Ali ova riječ, tillit, je od velikog značaja u Norveškoj. Zna je svako dijete, svaki učenik.
Tillit.
Tillit. Okay. The philosophy of tillit. You live with it. You trust people.
Yeah.
A lot of us live with the rule of like we trust everyone unless they give us a sign that they shouldn't be trusted. But also, of course, Norwegians are known to be a little bit naive, at least when it comes to the outside the world, outside of Norway, where people don't trust each other that much.
O podrijetlu te važne, možda krucijalne riječi za etiku norveškog društva pitat ćemo istaknutog političkog analitičara, socijalnog antropologa, profesora Ivera Neumana u ovoj za Norvežane atipično velikoj kući koja ima zanimljivu povijest i vlasnika Nobelovca, nacionalnog heroja u 2 države.
We are in the old home of Fridtjof Nansen, who is a national hero. He was a very good zoologist and one of the founders of oceanography. He was also a polar explorer and running around on skis all the time, which is a very Norwegian thing to do. From the money he made writing about his trips and also going on lecture tours, he built the house in order to look like an English manor. This is not a particularly Norwegian house. We have houses like this in Norway, but not very many. It's too big and a bit too solid to be a Norwegian house. A Norwegian house should be a wooden house. He was also a great humanitarian. His perhaps crowning achievement was the so-called Nansen Pass, which was what the French call the laissez-passer. That is a piece of paper you could show in lieu of a passport, and you would be let across borders. And perhaps the most illustrious example of this would be hundreds of thousands of Armenians who were able to escape Ottoman persecution and save their lives. So to this day, Nansen is a national hero in Armenia.
What's the Norwegian name for trust?
Tillit.
Tillit.
In the old days, it was overtly religious. The state decided that leaned on the church. And there was a consensus that we were all equal before the flag. That's nationalism, but we were also all equal before God. And as you remember, Protestantism, this was Protestantism's big gripe against Catholicism, that the church had become a monster, too big and a self-serving thing, whereas Protestants, there should be a direct link where everyone was responsible not to the church, but to God himself. This is one of the reasons for that would be that we have had almost a century of social democracy. And of course, what was their ethos? It was the same as the Protestant ethos. We're all equal. We should all be paid more or less compatible sums. We should see to it that no one is left behind, etc.
Oho, kakav je ovo primjer gdje crkva i partija, luterani i socijaldemokrati imaju zajedničke vrijednosti. Pa jesu li ovi većinski luterani u Norveškoj isti kao protestanti u Americi? Maštaju li i oni ponajviše ostvariti američki san, dakle, postati milijunaši? Idemo mi u crkvu pitati.
Not in the American dream way. I think we have a more down-to-earth issues on that one, I think.
More equalizing.
Absolutely. We have a high level of trust. We call it tillit. It's a Norwegian word. And it means that we have a high level of trust to one another. And we have these social democratic traditions in Norway. So that means that we are quite equal, all of us, in the beginning. And we love to pay our taxes, and we pay it for the fellowship and try to make the best of it for most people.
Okay, but now again, in history comes a new technology. Someone 16 years old makes a video game and makes 100 million at the age of 18.
Yeah.
It's not egalitarian.
No,
you
it's
must
not.
pay him what he earned.
Yeah.
And other people are confused with new technology.
Yes.
And remain poor.
Yeah.
First of all,
Yeah.
are there more divisions that you follow in the last years than before?
Absolutely. And the differences between people increases day by day. And it's a big problem, I think, because the poor get poorer and the rich gets richer day by day. I think that we as a church, both Catholics and the Lutherans, have a big task to remind people about the Christian values. That we are all an image of God and we are all equally valued.
Prije razgovora sa svećenikom koji je zadužen i za norvešku kraljevsku obitelj, vidjeli smo na desetine mladića i djevojaka koji povremeno posjećuju ovu luteransku crkvu u Oslu, crkvu mira i pomirbe.
It's also very important that we as a church and as a society can listen to people's life and try to understand what issues the young people in this society are dealing with. So we try to teach the children and the young people about that, but also as a church to learn from them. It's very important that the church learn what the young people and the children are dealing with in these days. The church is not a part of the education in the school like we used to. So we are a society with a lot of different religions and denominations. And that means that we have to figure out a way to talk to one another that is built on respect and dialogue and try to learn from one another. And that's the way we teach religion in the school.
So there is a subject, religions
Sure.
in the world.
Sure, it is, yes. Ethics and religions, yes.
Kad sam ovdje bio posljednji put 2005. Ovo iza mene ništa nije postojalo, nije bilo ove velebne zgrade opere, a onda su bez mnogo obzira prema prestrogim zaštitarima kulture izgradili jedan čitav novi kompleks. Ovi ga zovu bar kod, jer tako sliči na to, sa bezbroj značajnih zgrada koje su promijenile vizuru Osla.
Novo je u Oslu da se prozori višekatnica peru dronovima. Nema više skela i perača koji vise po fasadama. Novo je da se prave zgrade, čak i neboderi, kompletno od drveta. Novo je i ovo zdanje koje, rekli su nam, najveća poslovna zgrada u Oslu. Pa nije baš golema, ima većih i u Zagrebu. Je li ovo postojalo i prije ili je novo, nisam siguran, ali ne sjećam se da su saune bile ovako izložene očima prolaznika u centru grada. Otvorenih prozora, bez zavjesa, uz obalu mora. Naravno, čudoređe se poštuje. Ljudi u saunama, ogrnuti su ručnicima, nisu posve goli, kao na primjer u Finskoj.
Dobro, idemo na krov gore. Čekaj, ovdje nešto piše da ima puno stuba, da može biti sklizak i da idete na vlastiti rizik. Čujem. Ajte vi gore. Ja ću vidjeti šta ću.
Odmah u blizini opere je novi muzej najvećeg norveškog slikara Edvarda Munka, autora glasovite slike Krik, čije su mnoge inačice ovdje izložene, a glavna se prikazuje samo 1 sat u danu.
So many stories about this painting, the scream, so many ideas of the motifs of Edvard Munch. Now we are here in Oslo and you know about it.
Yeah. What do you want me to tell you about?
The motif?
The motive of the scream? Yeah, so the scream is a series of motifs. Edvard Munch made several versions. And in this museum we have 3 colorful versions and several prints. And what he wanted to portray, or what he wanted to tell people with his motive, was the feeling of having existential angst. Feeling of being a modern human being, alone in the modern world, with illness, with bigger cities, with everything that happens, and feeling completely alone.
What happened at that time?
What happened in Norway at that time was, before this, so many Norwegians lived in smaller villages and often lived in what we call big families. So you live together with a lot of people on a farm. And then when industry starts, people move away from the villages and into the city. So Oslo, at the time Edvard Munch lived, became a very much larger city. And with a lot of more illness, a lot of more pollution, a lot of more pace, a much faster pace.
And tuberculosis?
And a lot of tuberculosis, yes. Yeah.
The mother of Munch, when he was young, she died of tuberculosis?
Yes, so Edvard Munch's mother was sick by tuberculosis for several years, and his bigger sister, Sophie, she had a very brief period of sickness before she died. So he both lost his mother and his sister to tuberculosis.
Ispred muzeja Edvarda Muncha podignut je spomenik njegovoj majci, Lauri, visok 9 metara. Bilo je puno polemike, stajao je $12 milijuna, ali za tako velikog slikara neka mu je u čast. Anything that you would like to emphasize and I didn't ask you?
Well, I think I would encourage people who look at the scream to kind of think of who is doing the screaming. Because when we ask children what is happening here, a lot of children say, oh, that person, he's so happy, he's screaming of joy. But the phrase which Edvard Munch used was, I heard a great scream go through nature. So maybe it's not the figure that's screaming, maybe it's nature.
Osim ekološke svijesti nove norveške generacije, osim tillita i vjere u ljude, društvo i institucije, štedljivosti i skromnosti, Norveška je jedna od prvih zemalja koja je zakonski priznala ravnopravnost žena u društvu, a i velikodušna je prema osobama s invaliditetom. O tome nam svjedoči bivša parlamentarka Tove Linnea Brandvik.
As a child, I was growing up in a world where women wasn't given the same rights as men. And as a child, I thought, that is not fair. So I was fighting to be given women rights as a young woman. And then when I saw that disabled are treated differently, I couldn't respect it. So this is my part of that equal rights battle. I was really lucky. A lot of coincidences put together made it possible for me. And then it became an obligation for me to actually do something about it. I was given the possibility.
Well, how that switch happens? That you feel that it's an obligation?
I'm not sure. Nobody ever actually asked me that question before. If you experience injustice, hopefully you are responding to it. And sometimes you realize I actually are able to do something about it. It could be raising your hand, that is not right, you have to do things differently. Or standing up on a position. Being a leader saying it's not okay to discriminate in our business.
What is free for the patients in Norway? Surgeries?
Yes, surgeries. Going to the doctor, you have to pay a fee up to a certain amount of money during a year. And for the rest of your treatments that year is free. Everything is free.
What is the amount of the fee, let's say?
3,000 kroner, Norwegian.
Okay, 300
so it's
euros.
Yeah. So it's not a heavily cost for the individual, but for the poor ones.
30 euros a month.
Yeah.
Pitali smo tko plaća ljude na bolovanju i ima li slučajeva varanja.
In Norway, we are actually quite a low rate of people who's trying to cheat on the system. But we're also following it up quite closely. Because if I am on a sick leave, I have 100% of my salary actually paid to me. So I don't lose money being sick.
And who is paying that difference? The state social security or the employer?
The first 2 weeks, the employer is paying my sick leave. But after the 2 weeks, it's the state.
And what is the maximum of sick leave?
1 year.
1 year. Okay, who controls that you are really sick?
It's the doctor. who's having a right to actually check upon, is this a real solution? My employer have the right to actually check upon me. Do you actually...
To take photos if you are playing basketball or something like that. They did that and...
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest it for the employers to do that, because that is not something about the right of personal life. But if there is covered that you are actually cheating on the system, you have to pay back all the money and you can face a time in jail. So its reaction is quite harsh.
Što kao odvjetnici, tužitelji isto ima. To svi koji smo pravnici kao i ovaj glavni sudac i glavni sudac.
A kakve su pravne posljedice za prevarante? Pitamo odvjetnicu hrvatskog podrijetla, rođenu u Norveškoj, specijaliziranu za kaznena djela Marijanu Lozić, koja dobro poznaje i sjeverni i južnjački mentalitet.
Ja sam primijetila zadnje jedno 10 godina. Ja dobijem jako puno našeg svijeta koji me kontaktiraju za pomoć. I ja bih rekla 90% od tih koji me kontaktiraju, to je neka frka s poslom, sa šefom, koji im ne daju plaću, pa su nezadovoljni sa ovim, pa sa onim. Ali ima...
Jer su u pravu.
Ne primam te stranke.
Dakle, ipak bi htjeli malo iskoristiti sustav.
Ima toga. Naš sustav, norveški sustav, je stvarno jako dobar za radnike. I što se tiče medicinskog, stvarno socijalno, što se toga tiče, jako dobro. Ali, nažalost, ima jako puno svijeta koji to iskorištavaju i koji traže savjet od nas advokata kako bi mogli iskoristiti taj sustav za različite stvari. Ali normalno, te savjete ne mogu ovdje...
A to je ono što oni ne gledaju granu na kojoj sjede da će posjeći, jer to, bez obzira što su Norvežani velikodušni, to te iritira. Normalno. Da pored tebe neko koristi blagodati sustava koji smo mi svi prihvatili da radimo pošteno.
Tako je. A taj novac je moj porez, što ja plaćam.
I to nije neka velika šteta, ali okolnost da se to događa pred mojim očima iritira.
Je. Stvarno svakako. I to se kaževa dosta strogo. Jer ja te slučaje imam dosta puno na sudu, kazneni slučajeve. Ljudi baš koji su iskoristili taj sustav. Na primjer da kažu da su bolesni i dobivaju novce od države pod bolovanjem, a da rade sa strane. To se jako strogo kažnjava. Tako da je...
Koliko se kažnjava? Čak i zatvorom? Ne?
Da, čak i zatvorom. Ali što se tiče tih slučajeva, tu možda zavisi normalno kolika je svota novaca, o čemu se radi, ali na primjer 300-400 tisuća, na primjer, ako kruna, 4 do 6 mjeseci zatvora. Što sam ja čula jako puno priča iz Hrvatske, kako se doktora plati, kako se medicinske sestre plate, kad je neko u bolnici, kupiš im piće, kupiš ovo ono da bi dobio kao neku bolju njegu. Toga ovdje stvarno nema. Naprimjer, za mene isto, kad radim kao odvjetnica, mene država plaća za sve moje poslove. Ovdje svi imaju pravo na besplatnog odvjetnika u kaznenim slučajevima. I to možeš birati koga god želiš kao advokata, ali isto smo svi plaćeni.
Da varanje nije samo posao doseljenika i malih ljudi, nego se popelo i u vrhove norveških institucija, o tome se već izvještava u norveškim medijima, a sumnje nam potvrđuju i drugi dobro informirani ljudi.
It's not entirely true that we control ourselves so well. If you look at the present situation, we have a former prime minister whose husband has done something that looks very much like corruption. And it's an open question whether this prime minister has been complicit in it or not. Maybe not because she willed it, but because she's been sharing information about political decisions with her husband, who has then acted on them economically. So we have corruption and we have nepotism, etc. But when it comes out, we live
compared to the south of Europe,
very little. Very little. But it's also comical that once a scandal like that breaks, if this had been in Southern Europe, everyone who would have expected it to be a huge sort of corruption scandal, in this country, you say, oh, we don't have corruption, so this must be something else. So that's the sort of flip side of this, that there is a certain naivete, you know. I remember living in Italy in 1995 and discussing the Andreotti sort of scandal with people. And a number of people were very skeptical because they said, we don't want new parties because new parties will bring new individuals and they will have to eat. We have to pay new bribes, right? If we keep the old politicians, they have already been bribed, so everything is fine. It's a very cynical, but also a very realistic way of thinking about politics. A Protestant would never think like that.
Da ne bi akutne društvene bolesti postale kronične, Norvežani su uveli, kao i sve druge nordijske zemlje, sustav preventivne kontrole potencijalnih dugoprstih. Nema tu milosti ni za parlamentarce, niti za osobe s invaliditetom.
There is a system that I have to follow, who's called PEP, person of interest, political interests. And I have to, as a politician, give information if I'm seeking a loan or spending a lot of money to my bank. I have to give the information for where the money is coming from, what I'm going to use it for, to be sure that I can't use my political power to being paid from somebody else, giving them benefits. I left the parliament 10 years ago this year, and I still have to do it. Yeah.
Ova pravila ponašanja, jednakost ljudi pred zakonom, ravnopravnost žena, medijske slobode, otpor rasizmu, šovinizmu, prava seksualnih manjina, dobro obrazovanje, dobro zdravstvo, visoke plaće koje se osiguravaju dobrom organizacijom gospodarstva, ali i štednjom i porezima u čemu svi pošteno sudjeluju, to je zajedničko nordijskim zemljama. Evo nas nakon Osla u Helsinkiju. U Finskoj, koja je statistički i po plaćama i društvenom standardu manje bogata od Norveške, ali filozofija življenja, luteransko-protestantska etika, gdje su i crkva i vlast, ponajviše socijaldemokrati, ali i oporba, protiv jakih lidera, protiv moćne monarhije i autokrata svake vrste, gotovo su jednaki.
So it's a pleasure to meet you, really.
Thank you. Nordic countries can be put together in such a way that we are against autocrats. So authoritarianism is, autocrats are the things people we despise in general.
That's right.
Yeah.
But even in the church you never had authority.
No.
You didn't want the Pope.
No.
Why would the Pope would be?
Yes, because Pope is an autocrat, according to us. But anyway, we are not so religious people.
No.
We are quite secular. So we belong to the church, Lutheran church, but this applies to all Nordic citizens. We are very secular.
U uredu važnog finskog pisca Ari Turunena pitamo koja bi riječ u njegovoj zemlji bila slična norveškom tilitu.
I think our word is luotto, which comes from that you trust, but luotto also means that you can be, you have enough, I trust your financial funds also. So the credit. So credit is the thing which is the thing. So you have to have credit in order
social capital.
Social capital, yes. And that's the way that's our capital in order to survive.
It doesn't mean that you're necessarily rich.
No, but yes. So
you're
this is,
established,
you have a good
rules.
reputation.
Good reputation.
A good reputation in that sense. I mean, that you do what you have promised to do. And this is honored. And this is the kind of a virtue of Finnish culture.
Zamjenik direktora najvećeg finskog sindikata Pekka Ristela naglašava jednu važnu razliku između Finske i drugih nordijskih zemalja.
Well, for people outside your circle, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, look very much the same, almost the same. However, there are differences. Let's say these three countries are kingdoms, you are a republic, then they have their own currency, the crown.
You have the euro. So what's different?
I think there are many reasons. Today, I would say politically one of the main differences is that we are more deeply integrated in the European Union. Just one example, we are in the common currency, as you mentioned. And also Finns tend to have a more straightforwardly positive view on European integration. And I think that is for geographical and historical reasons.
Geopolitical reasons, that's the correct way to say.
That's correct.
The decision to invite Finland and Sweden to join, that's an historic decision. And it was important that all 30 allies agreed to invite Finland and Sweden. And now what remains, and we have signed the accession protocol, so now we need the ratification in 30 parliaments. And as soon as that happens, Finland and Sweden will be members of NATO.
The decision to join NATO was an easy one, was it?
In the end, it was easy. It was a debated issue for a long time. For a long time, the great majority of Finns thought that it's not the right thing to do. But then, after the latest war in Ukraine, the decision was an easy one to make.
Finska ima povijesno neugodnog susjeda, Rusiju, Sovjetski savez, s kojima su hrabro ratovali, kao manji i slabiji čak i pobjeđivali, ali uvijek na oprezu. Dizali su spomenike prijateljstva s ruskim narodom. Danas, nakon Putinovog napada na Ukrajinu, te se uspomene uklanjaju bez buke, bez publike, gotovo neprimjetno.
Finsko-sovjetski odnosi su dramatično komplicirani. Kad pogledate ovaj spomenik, on je spomenik finsko-sovjetskom prijateljstvu. Ali onda kad promislite, izgrađen je 1968. netom nakon tog prijateljstva je Sovjetski savez upao u Čehoslovačku. Pa je to dosta zategnulo odnos. Onda imate drugi spomenik koji je bio nakon 90. i demontiranja Sovjetskog saveza, era Gorbačova, koji je također bio u čast sovjetsko-finskog prijateljstva. Evo vidite, sada je tu jedno veliko gradilište, spomenik je sklonjen, veliko je pitanje hoće li biti vraćen. I sad, evo nas u jednom parku, kad uključite GPS, piše Lenjinov park. Da, ali više ne piše. Ovdje nema više znaka da je to Lenjinov park. Dakle, skinuto je, sad park nema ime, pitanje je hoće li Lenjinovo biti vraćeno poslije onoga što se događa u Ukrajini.
Ovo nije samo podzemna garaža, poželjno mjesto za parking. A što je još, reći će nam nadležni organ u uniformi, Tomi Rask.
Here we see lollipops, we see orange juices. Where are we now?
You are in many residential areas, bedrock shelter, and what you see is an normal times activity within most of our shelters have some kind of.
How many shelters do you have in Helsinki, if it's not a secret?
Over 5,500.
Atomic shelters.
Civil defense shelters.
This shelter is for how many people?
For 6,000 persons.
How many beds?
For 1/3 of the population, so about 2,000.
And supplies are not foreseen that you will have restaurants here or something like that?
No. The sheltering period is between some hours and some days, so person doesn't need food, for example. But we need air and we need water, and that's what we will supply within all the shelters. Some of our shelters can be prolonged up to a month.
Do ratnih sukoba ili atomske bombe ovo mjesto se koristi kao fast food restoran, sportske aktivnosti, Tu je i fitness dvorana, igraonica za djecu. A ja sam se oprobao u hokeju.
Da, ovdje bi mi igrali mali nogomet, ali ovdje je naravno Finska, zemlja hokeja, a ovdje ne može pasti gol ako niste dovoljno spretni, jer ovdje je imitacija golmana. I onda gledate da pogodite u neki kut, što nije baš tako lako. Stativa, vratnica i konačno.
We have been blessed that we have had over 80 years of deep peace. So today people they know what it means, but they don't realize how important or where it connects to. So they know that we have the systems, they know that we test them.
Helsinki ima skloništa za 900.000 ljudi, a u gradu živi 650.000. Na cijelom teritoriju Finske skloništa je oko 50.000 za gotovo 5 milijuna stanovnika.
Since when you started to be so active in preparing a defense?
The first mandates to start building civil defense matters started in Helsinki in 1938, so just before the Finnish wars.
Okay, but then at that time you didn't anticipate that it might be an nuclear attack.
No, not on that era. Yeah. The modern era, as we call them, shelters started in 60s, 70s.
The material above us, is it protecting from radiation?
Yes, of course. It's pure bedrock, so mostly granite.
And since Russia attacked Ukraine, did you have more preparations? Did you have more exercising?
No.
No, same.
No, just the same. The threat against Finland is mostly as the same.
Which means a lot?
No.
Average?
No. We have a big friend neighboring us. We know that they are capable of things, and we know that we need to take care of that. They don't try to attack us.
Sad jedna digresija. Povratak u park koji se zvao Lenjinov, a više se ne zove nikako, i poziv čovjeka s bocom na balkonu, nešto što je rijetkost i u Finskoj i u Norveškoj, gdje se nepoznati ne pozivaju. Ali alkohol čini razliku.
It's a wine from Portugal.
Yes.
It's a red wine.
Bless.
Vino tinto.
Oh.
God bless. It costs in Portugal 5 euros. How much does it cost here?
30 euros. Because I'm an alcoholist.
Ova je crtica bila samo uvod u ozbiljniji problem u Finskoj, alkoholizam i narkomaniju, koje vode u beskućništvo, a finski sustav počiva na ideji da nitko ne smije biti gladan i bez krova nad glavom. Ovo je jedna od zgrada za 90-ak potrebitih ovisnika koji se tu hrane i stanuju. Ima i starih, ali i jedva punoljetnih.
But why? Life is so good.
I don't know.
No?
I was lost my baby and
I'm sorry.
I got the drugs and then I take all
Drugs change your chemistry.
Now
But
I'm
if you...
clean. I
Yeah?
like 1 year clean.
Come on, get off those drugs and start drinking tea and go outside. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Now we get food.
Please get some food, yeah. Comment vous êtes venu ici?
J'étais marié.
Ah.
J'étais marié avec une Finlandaise.
Qui était venu en vacances en Tunisie.
C'est ça, exactement.
Et vous étiez beau garçon.
C'était coup de foudre. On est mariés.
Voilà.
On est venu ici, mais ça marche pas.
Vous avez essayé un peu les narcotiques.
Ouais, mais ça marche pas.
Et alors avec ça marche pas.
T'inquiète, je suis pas marié avec elle à cause de papier ou quelque chose de ça, non. Je l'aime bien, parce qu'elle est belle aussi.
Ouais.
Tu vois. Mais ça marche pas. Sentimentalement, tout ça a changé quand on est ici. Franchement.
La différence des mentalités.
Ouais, c'est pas la différence de mentalité. Je commence à boire toujours, fumer, joindre toujours, élever le futur. Et moi, j'étais un peu...
Mais alors, vous êtes jeune.
Ouais,
vous avez des enfants avec cette femme?
Tu penses combien mon âge? Tu penses que j'ai quel âge?
32?
Mon frère. Quoi?
32?
Non, plus.
Plus? 40?
Non, pas 40, non. 35.
35?
Ouais,
okay.
Bientôt 36.
Le meilleur âge?
Ouais.
Mais alors, comment vous allez recommencer la vie, hein? Vous parlez le finnois déjà?
Ouais, ça va.
Ça va,
comme ça.
ok.
Je comprends plus que je parle.
Et à part du français, vous comprenez aussi l'anglais?
Ouais, je parle bien l'anglais.
Parle bien.
Ouais.
Et des affinités, qu'est-ce que vous aimeriez faire?
Je sais pas, hein. Je perds mon chemin à ce moment.
Jasno mi je, poštovani gledatelji, da je ovo drugi tip skloništa od onog atomskog, premda njime upravlja vojska spasa. Štićenici, uglavnom svi posrnuli ovisnici, smješteni su ovdje. Jedan bivši alkoholičar, koji je pjevajući tango davno stigao iz Čile u Finsku, a danas je zaposlen kao kuhar u ovom skloništu, objašnjava kako funkcionira finski sustav.
Bueno, ahora canta lo que quieras.
Okay.
English, whatever.
Kiitoksia. We are in Finland, so in Finland, to understand Finland, we have to know that person rights are everything. And the person rights in the Constitution of Finland said that person have the rights to a good life, to a place to live, to a minimum wage, to a minimum way of sustaining himself. If he don't do it, so the state have to prepare the proper ways to do it. So housing first come in the pictures during the 80s, 90s, and they recognize that every person, even if it's a user of or abuser of substance like alcohol or drugs, have the rights to live under a roof. And for that, we have different ways of give money to the person so he can have an apartment. You have the state that give you rent a percent of rent money. You have to, of course, do some obligations. You have to ask for work in 4 different places a month. You have to get your CV, your curriculum vitae on the date. You have to do a lot of obligation to get this kind of money. If you don't do it, so you are going to get less and less by percentage. If you don't do it the first month, if around 10% that you get less and like that.
So your rent, you pay yourself?
Yeah, of course.
You don't have subsidy for food, electricity?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore?
Not anymore.
So you are on your own?
Yeah.
And when you came here, first time, you were homeless? You were addicted to some alcohol?
When I came here for 30 years ago to Finland, I came after a big singer from this country. His name was Olavi Virta, one of the biggest tango singers in Finland, who also died of alcoholism in the late 60s. I love tango.
Porque el tango viene con la bebida.
Porque el tango es macho.
Porque el tango es fuerte. Tiene olor a vida y tiene gusto a muerte.
Sí.
Que el mundo fuese era una porquería, ya lo sé. En el 506 y en el 2000 también. Que siempre ha habido y estafado, contentos y amargados, balones i dobles.
Sad, ovako izgleda kad beskućnik dođe u svoj stan. Koji će plaćat? Plaćat će stanarinu, ali će mu država pomoći. Dakle, zatekne, ima frižider, ima špaher, ima toplu i hladnu vodu, koja radi, koja je pitka, tu par ormara, tu mu je krevet, neki radni stol, sve je to vrlo, vrlo skromno. I ovo ima 22-23 kvadrata. Pogledat ćemo i kupaonicu. Ono izgleda relativno ok, ali cijena je 20 eura po četvornom metru. Dakle, on će platiti ovaj stan nenamješten baš do kraja 440 eura. To će mu platiti država 80%, a ostatak će on na neki način zaraditi što će mu ovdje pomoći. You are a social worker with the Salvation Army. Now you are somehow responsible for this building with 90 tenants that were homeless before they came here.
Yes.
So who are they?
So they all come from different backgrounds. So there's not only one background, but they all without money, of course, because they are homeless. And mainly they have issues with the substance abuse. And also many of them have mental issues. And usually they go together like this. And so if you have the other, you have the other also. So that's quite usual.
We met one worker here, Miguel,
yes,
who is from Chile originally, although he lived here for 20 years. What are the majority of these people, foreigners or Finns?
Finns. Most of them are Finns. And I think one reason is that because Finns are quite isolated from each other nowadays. It's part of the northern European system. So if you are from other countries, your families are more knit together. So you will take care of your own. The main problem, they tell me, over here is not the drugs. They say, I'm so lonely. If I ask them, what's the biggest problem you have? Almost all of them answer me that they are lonely.
This apartment is lovely, well arranged, with a lot of love, and that we congratulate her.
Niin, että onneksi olkoon Tuija, että tästä sinun kodistasi näkee, että tämä on tehty rakkaudella ja tämä on tosi kaunis ja kiitos kun he sai tulla. Hän halusi kertoa sulle. Olkaa hyvä.
Okay. What is her problem? Why did she end up here?
Mies kuoli ja lähti asuntoalta. Her husband died and it was only in his name and she became homeless.
What? But you were married, then the apartment is yours.
No, her relatives took it away, the husband's relatives. It was under the husband's name.
But the husband is inherited by the wife.
Niin hän ihmettelee, että miten ne on pystynyt viemään sulta sen asunnon, mutta se oli vain it was only in his name.
Yes. 13 vuotta oltiin ja se kuoli Taimaahan.
Yeah, 13 years they were together and they were in Thailand having a vacation and he died in Thailand. Heart attack.
But you lived in that apartment?
Niin sä asuit siinä, mutta se oli sen miehen, niin it was only under his name, I don't know.
But okay, but then you inherit the apartment, you pay some little...
Niin hän sanoi, että miksi et sä perinyt sitä, hän ei ymmärrä sitä. Niin. Yeah, she doesn't understand it either. There was something.
Okay.
But she became homeless that way.
Photo of Bob Marley. Is he your favorite?
Miksi sä tykkäät Bob Marleysta vai se on sun musiikki? The music is her, she loves it. And it calms her down.
But did you try? No.
Ei enää.
When she was homeless, she told me this before, she used drugs, but when she got the apartment, she got off the drugs right away. She says she was so afraid that she used the drugs when she was homeless, but when she came here with the safety of the home, she stopped the drugs.
Very well. Congratulations.
Ser derecho que traído, ignorante, sabio chorro, séntate a un lado.
I to je bilo sve u ovoj emisiji. U idućoj o Norveškom fondu nafte i plina koji vrijedi 1400 milijardi eura. I štednja je za budućnost. Ne smije se trošiti. U institutu koji je nekada bio za atomsku, a danas za zelenu energiju, i zašto sam u jednom trenutku pomislio uzviknuti Houston, imamo problem.
U ovoj jednoj ulici ima 39 trgovina proizvođača
sa otprilike 300 zaposlenih koji imaju obrt godišnji od oko 20 milijuna eura. Dakle, na izgled ništa, vidjet ćete figurice su vjerski motivirane ili su nogometno motivirane, ali sve zajedno jedna uličica 20 milijuna eura.
Filozofija ispijanja kave na evropskom sjeveru i jugu, jug prepun kafića i druženja po terasama, na sjeveru je toga puno manje, ali najviše kave na svijetu popiju Finci i Norvežani. A ja sam na sjeveru pojeo najbolji hotelski doručak koji pamtim. Poštovani gledatelji, doviđenja.
The way s vama ću, da ponovit ću. Heavily those that... Come on. Dođi. What happens if the...
Hvala, tu čajten syli.
Šta Syli?
Da vidimo hoće li je smiriti, da vidimo da li ovdje roditeljski odgoj vrijedi.
Tu će vähäksi aikaa.
Ovu tišinu, jer to je Finska. Šta je sad ovo bubnulo tamo? Kako stojimo? Ide, jel?
Ćete se kretati ili stojite?
Nemoj sada jediti.
Sandra, oče.
U kadru smo nas dvoje.
Dvojica. Može i to.
That combination would be very good youth. At the moment I would say, if I were handicapped or unemployed.
Yeah.
Po 50. Nisam dobro, još jednom, pardon. Konferencija o